completion of the commercial street portion of the Connect Historic Boston project. And I want to make it, I want to clarify that the Connect Historic Boston project is a very large project. It's $23 million worth of construction that's taking place in five different areas of the city. We've got a portion in Beacon Hill on Joy Street. We have a portion on Constitution Road in Charlestown. We have the current portion that's under construction, which is in Stanford and Causeway Street, and then there's the commercial street portion that I'll speak most closely to today. But certainly, if you have any questions about the rest of it, I'm happy to let you know. So the groundbreaking is tomorrow for the project overall. It is purely ceremonial. They're not doing anything super special tomorrow besides politicians speaking at this ceremony. So it's not necessarily signifying anything other than the fact that the project is kicked off. But you are certainly all welcome. It's at 1 o'clock on Union Street. It's going to be a nice little ceremony. But that is what prompted us to come in and make sure that you all knew what was happening with the project. The Stanford and Causeway Street portion of the project started in April. So the real groundbreaking when we actually started construction was actually back in April. So the project is underway. We will be moving into the North Washington Street intersection in approximately 2 weeks. Now, everything I tell you is subject to change because construction is predictably unpredictable. So we've had a lot of trouble with siting our drainage systems on Stanford and Causeway Street. There's a lot of underground utilities, and it's been very difficult for us to fit everything in that we need to fit in. We are anticipating that those challenges will continue for the next couple weeks. We anticipate in the North Washington Street intersection we will also have those problems. So we recognize up front that our site conditions are very difficult and these schedules will likely change. So we're anticipating that we get into the North Washington Street intersection sometime around the 20th of July. Permits still have not been fully pulled for that portion, so there's a possibility that the permitting process will hold it up. In order for the permitting to go through, we need to have a very sufficient traffic management plan so that we minimize the impacts to traffic for all of these portions of work. So the contractor's still finalizing what those are going to look like. So that could also delay the start of the North Washington Street portion. I've laid out about 4 phases of the roadway work, which is mostly drainage, conduits, street lighting work, that sort of thing. They're starting with that. Each phase is going to take about 2 weeks. Again, weather dependent on what they actually find in the roadways and where the challenges are. After approximately August 17th or so, they'll start work on the sidewalk and the cycle track, and they're kind of chasing from the north to the south behind the drainage work. So you will at some point see 2 crews out there, one doing some drainage and roadway work, and one doing sidewalk and cycle track work. So it will be busy. I don't want to lie and say that there will be no change in your lives for the next summer. We're trying to minimize all of our construction impacts. We're trying to minimize the amount of parking that's taken at any given time. But there will be inconveniences, so I can't hide that. It will happen. We're doing our best to make sure that they're as small as possible, but it's construction. So we are we have told them that they can't take more than 2 blocks of parking at a time, and they are going to be keeping the work zones as small as possible. So I'm hoping that there is very little, that we're not going to get into the point where they're taking that much at any given time. They've been clearly directed to keep the work zones as small as possible so that the parking impacts are as small as possible. The work time is 9:30 to 3:30, where they cannot take a travel lane before 9:30 in the morning. There may be some work, let's say, on the sidewalks prior to that, but certainly not earlier than 7:30 in the morning, because that's when we allow work to start in the city. But there will be no travel lane restrictions prior to 9:30 in the morning on Commercial Street.
God bless America. We have $23 million for bicycles and nothing for homeless, schools, medical care,
Well, it's a major infrastructure upgrade beyond just the bike, so there is a lot that's going into this.
Bicyclists.
I think there is. But out there, the North Washington intersection, and I'm just curious, as you talked about the hours, is there evening work?
No.
Obviously, there's really complicated
Nope.
keeping these lanes open.
Yes, we will, we are not anticipating any evening work. We are not anticipating any weekend work. We have so far since April only worked one Saturday and no evenings. And that Saturday was because they had to take out a traffic light, so they picked the time that had the least amount of traffic at that one intersection, and it happened to be a Saturday. So, so no, we don't. Now, they're not to say that they may not have to do something, but we will get the word out there if that is going to happen.
Yeah, if you could. I mean, I don't know who's
Absolutely.
down there, but I mean, they have stopped usually around 11 or 11:30. There's definitely stuff going on down there right now, which with the windows open is really
No, we're intending 9:30 to 3:30, and that's it. So the contractor does not want to work more than that.
Hope I don't need their services, but have you worked with them going, sort of like if there's waivers or anything? Those are
So
sporadic.
they do a lot of site coordination, so not yet. However, I am sure that they will be out there. We have a pretty full staff on this project, and so they do always reach out directly to the abutters, particularly the commercial entities, to make sure that there's always, you know, that there's good coordination for. We have worked events, we're coordinating with the events, but I know there's a lot of concern with the east and that sort of thing. We're fully coordinated with all of the events that happen in the event.
Back to Union Street and the Connect Historic Boston
Yes.
project. Is Marshall Street part of that project?
Yes,
So the cobblestones will be relayed?
yes.
Thank you.
Yes, it is going to be a beautifully done Blackstone block when we are all done.
Great.
Yes, absolutely. I will just want to point out, because I forgot to on this, I gave you a few, some places to go for additional information as the project continues. We have a brand new website that went live today, which is going to have construction updates on it. The old website was all planning and design related. This new website is all very specific to the construction impacts, where they're working on any given day, a 3-week look ahead for what construction is going to be, and anything else that we need to get out there. So you've got information on the project on the website. I give you the phone number for the project manager. Her name is Kay Barnard Smith. So she has a project-specific phone number. If you have any questions, any concerns, want to know what's going on outside my window right now, please call her. She will call you back within 24 hours, less than that if she happens to be sitting at her desk. And I want to send around right now a sign up if you're interested. We do send out our construction schedule on a regular basis, so you can get emails from us that will tell you exactly what the construction schedule is going to be, so I'll pass that around. And we are developing a new Twitter handle, although it's not ready yet, so if you happen to be a Twitter user, which I am not, but I'm sure that people are, we will be sending out Twitter updates that will be very specific. You know, tomorrow we'll be taking 10 spots on Union Street from 9:30 to 3:30, that sort of thing. So, yes?
On a positive note, I work on Stanford Street. So I've been going through this, it's been fine.
Great. That's
Yeah.
good to hear.
It hasn't been that inconvenient. There is some, but it hasn't been like others.
That's great. That's good to hear. I do have to say we've been really pleased with our contractor. He's been very responsive. They're doing a really good job, so that's been good.
I just wanted to say you seem wonderfully well organized, and I appreciate the way you're being so open with us and putting so many tools in our, yeah, all three of you.
Just, I believe in the last update that said that the parking, the number of parking spots is not going to change. Is that still the
That
case?
is correct. The final design, we did not take away any parking spots. You also did not lose any width of the traveled roadway either. There's no vehicle width that was lost. There was no parking that was lost. So what we took was the existing bike lanes that are out there. We took all that space that they are taking up right now and shifted that all over to the new cycle track. So you've got the same amount of space in the roadway that you have now will be what you get in the end.
And it will be both ways on the one side, on the
Yes.
water side of Commercial Street, and the bike lane that's there on the interior side will be removed.
That is
right?
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
I just, firstly, I just want to make sure I understand what's going on, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the red final phase. Because is it is it safe to say, or is it correct to say, that these first 4 phases are basically trench digging with some conduit, or maybe some curb relocation?
That is correct. It is, the majority of it is trenching work on the roadway. Yes, there will be some impacts to the sidewalk, but it's not.
But no
primarily.
curb relocation as yet. That comes in the red thing.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Now, the contractor may change their minds when they get out there, so again, that's another one of the caveats too. But right now, this is what you told me as of this afternoon.
Is there, I shouldn't say is there any risk, because there's always risk, but is there a substantial risk, in your opinion, that if there are any delays, this could end up being a project that has to stop at the freeze time and then restart in the spring?
Yes, in fact, I think it is very likely that they will not get all the way through the sidewalk phase prior to what we call the winter moratorium, which is basically mid to late November when it gets too cold for us to do construction. So I do anticipate that they will need to come back in the spring to complete the sidewalk and the cycle track somewhere in the southern portion of the road. I just don't know how far they're going to get before the end of November for that.
But you're going to push them to...
The faster we can get this done, the better off we all are. So, yes. Yes.
So this work is going to be this summer. Is the North Washington Street construction still on schedule to begin in 2017?
From what I have heard, but I am not directly involved in that project, so I have not heard that there's a delay, but I wouldn't take that as gospel.
And whatever happened to the Keeney Square reconfiguration project, and when will that happen?
I don't have an answer to that, but I will.
Is it still going to happen? Is it still a project that's in the CIP? Or was it ever in the CIP?
Well, wasn't that really part of the Crossroads initiative?
Right.
It would,
the Connect to Start Boston project has essentially enveloped the Causeway Street Crossroads project.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that anything they had planned on doing in Keeney Square under the Crossroads project was accounted for in the Connect to Start Boston project. But I wasn't involved with any discussions prior to, I only started with the city in 2013, so anything that happened in terms of discussions prior to that, so I can't confirm that, because I don't know exactly what was going to happen in Keeney Square. I just want to write down Keeney Square so I don't forget.
To follow up, and maybe you don't have this answer, it's in a part of the East Square question, but it gets a blue line in the phase 1 that is very thick over here with the Square is. Does that have to do anything with the big plaza sidewalk in front of Filippo's? Is that just going to be extended, or is that, because I heard it's going to be gone by next year, but is that part of this project or another project? It's kind of like Street.
I think it's like, I off the top of my head, I can't remember what that sidewalk was directly right there on this project. So we don't anticipate, what I mean is I don't know what the design looks like. I know what it looks like right now. I don't know what the design looks like right there. The North Washington Street Bridge project does butt up to the Connect to Start Boston project. I don't know whether that will extend further into, sort of past the intersection to take care of anything that's past that intersection. So, so I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look at what that sidewalk right there looks like.
I just have a friend who does electrical work, and he said that he's working. I'm getting it's like slate is gone.
Okay.
So I just don't know if that's happening.
Yeah, I'll double some of that detail. The plans, we have renderings online. The plans are not currently online, but if it would be helpful to get some schematics to give an understanding of what it's going to look like in the end, we can certainly put that up on the new website. So, yeah, we can do that. They are, if you go to the old website, there are some renderings up on the old website, which I can email you if you want to disseminate. So
that would be terrific. Thank you. One question I have is regarding, you mentioned that this project might have to take a pause for the winter. Mm-hmm. And that reminded me, several folks have commented, it hasn't come up in this conversation yet, but several folks have commented on the snow removal quarries regarding the reconfigured Commercial Street, because Commercial Street was such a horror show last winter. Of course, many streets were, but Commercial Street more so than many. And you know, the space savers were 20 feet out from the curb. People were trying to claim things that were really center lane, travel lane stuff. So just with a reduced width of plowable area, and also this new width of little area that probably requires a special plow. Is there a plan for, an action plan for snow removal?
So we have certainly, after this winter, had lots and lots of discussions about snow removal within Public Works. So I can speak to some of it, but I can't speak to all of it. So you certainly should continue this conversation with the Highway Department or with the Commissioner of Public Works, and I will let him know that this question came up. This winter was a difficult winter for everyone, as you all know, and we everywhere ran out of space to put the snow. So that was a real challenge. The good news is, like I said, the actual width of the road and the sidewalks put together is not actually changing. It's just the configuration of how that is being used. So, so there shouldn't be less space to put the snow. However, I realize practically it doesn't always work out that way. So there is space. There's a buffer on between the roadway and the cycle track. So there is space between the roadway and the cycle track to accommodate snow. It's not like the cycle track ends right at the curb. So there is some space there. That's kind of the best that I can do in terms of discussing it. There's the same amount of real estate, it's just how it's being used. So, so I will pass the concerns along to the commissioner, and we'll see if he can hopefully discuss that. We do have equipment to plow the cycle track, because that is something that will need to fall within Public Works purview, because it's not a sidewalk that will be taken care of by the abutters. It is something that is considered essentially taken care of like part of the roadway. So we will be plowing that.
So were cycle tracks plowed last winter?
I don't know that we have any cycle tracks that count toward this, really, like this.
Yeah, there's not another one that's like this. We have one on Mount Vernon Street in Dorchester, but it's ballers only, and those got removed. But that's some parking. Or something. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But it's a different kind of thing. Yeah. That was plowed with her, right?
Yeah, everything else that we have right now, there's no grade separated cycle tracks at the moment. Everything is all part of the roadway, so they plow it as part of the roadway. And you can't do that here.
So does there have to be a special plow, like a one-of-a-kind plow that you're
no, it's a little trackless thing that we have now. So that we didn't have to buy special equipment to do this. We will need to allocate the resources to make sure that it happens, but it's some special equipment.
I'd like to go back to the first presentation really quickly on the North Washington Street study, very quickly. When was that study done?
The before installation was done in May of 2014. The after was done in September of 2014.
Okay. I drive the street every day in the afternoon coming from the Sumner Tunnel into the North End. Just in the last year, even just in the last 6 months, traffic has increased tremendously along Cross Street and North Washington Street. Tremendously since your study was conducted. Bicycle use that I've observed over the last year has dropped on North Washington Street. I see far fewer bicyclists now on North Washington Street than a year ago when your program started up. And I wonder whether that's related to the traffic problems. The traffic congestion is terrible now compared to a year ago or even 6 months ago. And the violations by everyone except pedestrians. Pedestrians are pretty good, but the drivers and the bicyclists, many of them are violating the rules. They're going through red lights like crazy. They're blocking intersections. Those intersections need to be marked. I've noticed that intersections that are blocked off tend to be respected by drivers for the most part. Intersections that are not blocked off are not respected at all. And the intersection where Cross comes into North Washington Street is one of the worst for that. Another one is over in Charlestown, where we go from the Rutherford Avenue, you're taking a left to go to the Tobin Bridge. Every morning, that intersection is blocked off and people cannot get off of the Tobin Bridge onto Rutherford Avenue because of that. So to the DPW people, those intersections need to be blocked, and there need to be signs saying, do not block the intersections. But then there also has to be a heck of a lot more enforcement on drivers and on bicyclists, especially along North Washington Street. And I think if you did the study today, you would find greatly different results from your study back in September.
Thank you for your comments.
So you may want to think about that before you put down the thermoplastic. At the same time, though, you've got to put something down quickly because, as you said, the lines are almost gone now. It's a very dangerous situation, especially for bicyclists.
I took really good notes on everything you just said, and we really appreciate your comments and feedback. Safety is definitely the #1 concern of everyone. Vision Zero is a huge aspect of the multimodal network of Boston. So we don't want any conflicts. We want to improve safety for all the congestion that you're mentioning. I don't know why that's happening. We can look at signal timing. We can look at lane configuration. We did not change that as a part of the bike project, but it is something that we will look into. Thank you.
I mean, and also, I mean, we've talked about the BRA. There is, you know, close to getting green lights on millions of square feet of residential and office space being added to an already, you know, surface road's been mentioned several times. I mean, it's under manual traffic light control during rush hours because there's no algorithm that can handle it because the road's so over capacity. And yet we're putting millions of square feet additional. Of course, what David says is going to just get worse. And, you know, what might be a nice thing, and I know it's not the reason of this particular meeting, is maybe we should have a discussion in some future newer meeting where some folks can come in and we can talk about the traffic situation. Because I think there are a lot of us that are worried, you know, from a holistic point of view, pedestrians, bikes, and cars. I mean, it all just, if none of them can move, you know, we don't need to build anything.
And one strange thing is that when you read these developers' reports and they present mitigation for all the traffic that they're going to create, and they are going to create a lot more traffic. The Government Center Garage Project, the Boston Garden Project, and so forth and so on. Tremendous increases in traffic, and they're honest about that. But then they propose mitigation. The mitigation, for the most part, is to change the signalization. Not even add signals necessarily, but change the cycle of the traffic signals at a bunch of intersections. And I said to myself, wait a minute, we got problems today. Why aren't those things being done today by DPW and the Boston Transportation Department if they're going to provide so much additional benefit? Do them now.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that you ask the Transportation Department to come in and have a discussion about traffic because they did specifically answer those questions, and it's a very valid discussion.
Well, we want to thank you for this was great discussion. Thanks so much.